So anyway, so let's get going here. So the science of the golf grip. So what we're going to talk about here is, if you look in the background, you can see the different vectors coming out of that thing. That's the grip that Phil Cheatham created. So we're going to talk about the work that we've done together with Sasha and obviously with Mike's work. So the question that drives the research that we do is, why do we swing like we do? And constraint-based theory says, the environment. So for example, I grew up playing in England, and it was very windy all the time. And so, as people know, British play a ground-based game, but not always, but it can affect how you swing. Personal constraints would be the picture of our friend Billy there. And, he's 6'7" tall with a 6'2" wingspan. And Mike and Gio look like they're 4'2" in the picture. And then there's task constraints. So task constraint would be, hit the ball between those trees and things like that. And that's where, playing golf, as I said on an interview yesterday, the best lesson that I had doing all the testing we did was learning how much the game drives us to swing in the way we do. So, what we're talking a lot about here is the personal constraint of the way you're built. And then what I'm going to talk about with this grip study is how your outcome drives your swing. So the important thing knowing that is that then we need to intervene at cause, not effect. And that's what we talked about this morning, how, we might try and change the way that a backswing looks, but in reality, it could be an aim or a setup issue. So watching Mike and I teach, we do a lot of setup. So this is a little bit of a joke I use at the start of every presentation, but it's a really important one. Again, this came from Gregory Bateson. Understanding, the science as it relates to human beings. So inanimate objects are things like golf balls and pool balls. We can set up a machine to do the same thing every time, which is kind of, the mechanical way that people think of golf swings. Unfortunately, we are humans, and we, as we all know, when we play, our performance changes on a daily basis, and we're living systems. So what does that mean? So if I go and try and do an experiment where, I kick a dog, where's the dog going to land? It's going to be different every day. So I think, combining the bio and the mechanics is really important. If it was just mechanics, then limb lengths and chest sizes and things like that would be, the only thing to do. But we are humans playing golf. And when we teach, we're lining them up the best we possibly can to swing their way and hit their shot. But that, there's always a little bit of human being in there. So what is a grip? So it's a really important question to ask. If we all sat down and talked about the grip, prior to, listening to Mike and I, then we would assume, that we all have the same idea of what a grip is, right? It'd be like, if I was here sending, on a radio, communicating to you on 98.5, but you're receiving on 93.2, then we're not listening to each other. And grips are kind of like that. So we always assume, and Matt really pointed this out, the grips are basically strong or weak. It's the same in both hands. It's a beautiful grip. The grip is Arnold Palmer. He has the best grip of all time, and things like that. And they're all just pieces of information, but they're not really usable if we're in the business of changing ball flights on a regular basis. So I call that cliches and mysticisms. Mysticism is, believing there's some pixie dust out there that's ready to get sprinkled, and you get rewarded for having a more beautiful grip. So you can see here, this is Jordan Spieth, tends to have a very weak grip. He's won tournaments fading it pretty well. He's currently trying to hit high draws. Rory McIlroy is a strong left hand and weak right hand. Jordan Spieth is weak, basically. Up on the top right, that's Shane Lowry, and he's strong. And then the bottom there, we've got Siwoo Kim, who's got one of the weaker grips on tour and also hits it pretty flat ball flight. So how did this all come about? So following, Mike's research and development of the grip testing, which he's going to talk about later in terms of how do we apply this, I'm just going to give you some motivation for why you should apply it. So we did a bunch of testing. That's JJ Spawn and James Hahn. We had a whole day where we had just a ton of tour players come through and support us, which was really great. And we gathered their data. We had them, hit shots normal, and then with different types of club face condition. Phil's going to talk about this a lot more tomorrow. So just let it be known that we measured a bunch of people using his system, which is the AMM system. We use TrackMan, and we also use the quad. So the question we went into it was, how does changing the grip affect club delivery and ball flight? We're going to talk a little bit more about the methodology tomorrow. So when we changed grips, we immediately see, that the club delivery numbers change. So the way to think about this is, the way we did the testing was we closed the face at address 20 degrees. And we said to the person, okay, hit it straight. And so of course they have to reorganize their swing to facilitate that. Now, if I didn't say hit it straight, where would the ball go? So I close your face and, hit the golf ball, the ball will go left. So the organizing function is hit it straight. And so when we try and hit it straight with different grips, we change our swing instantaneously. Like the next swing will be a big difference. And the consequences on the club are very predictable. So the stronger a grip is relative to a square aim. We're going to come on to aim later. But if you aim straight and you strengthen your grip and you try and hit the golf ball that it's ending up at the target, then your attack angle is going to go up with a stronger grip, down with a weaker grip. Path will change, the loft will change because the timing of the release is different. Face angle relative to the path and the target will change, or path mainly. And the contact point in the face will change, which is pretty interesting. Launch angle in the ball flight, the launch angle changes, the spin changes, the ball speed changes because of the loft and the contact point. And then the carry and total relationship changes because the ball flight is going to be different. And, we've put this into the software where it becomes very predictable. So this is somebody, he's a tour player we basically closed the face 20 degrees and told him to hit it straight. And, we only accepted the successful outcomes, of course. So his attack angle was pretty shallow. His club path went more to the right. Spin went down. When we opened his club face, we can see the attack angle changed, swing direction, club path changed, spin loft changed, amount of spin, launch angle. So all those things are pretty obvious if you understand, a club face is three-dimensional, the ball kind of more or less bounces off it. This is James Hahn's information from that event. James is actually kind of interesting. A side note, he basically changes his grip to change his shot shapes, which is kind of cool. And he's somebody that's very interesting to hang out with. He's got all of his theories, developed over years of experimentation, and he loves to experiment. So you can see here, very consistent contact point on the face, pretty straight shots. So when he closed the face and then did what he needed to do to hit it straight, the path went more to the right, and you can see that the contact point went higher up the face and more towards the heel, shallowed out his angle of attack. When he opened the face and tried to hit it straight, you can see that the contact point went more towards the toe and lower on the face. So to understand the lower part, let me go back to that. If you look at how loft affects the height on the face that the ball hits, so you can see the difference between a driver high on the face, less loft. Obviously that one's teed up. Wedge lower on the face because of more loft. So loft affects how the vertical component of contact. So the weaker somebody grips it, they're going to hit it lower on the face. Stronger they grip it, they're going to hit it a little bit higher on the face. Just accept that as true based on the study. So this is Justin Thomas's grip. So we tested him and also have some of his data here. He hits up on it 3 degrees, has a very low spin rate because he hits it high on the face. And you can see he's got a stronger grip. This is Brooks Koepka, who has a weaker grip. This is when Brooks swings well, in my opinion, when he looks more like this. So his club face is more closed, right hand's more on top of the shaft. I think that's what he worked on when he went to Butch recently. He was out there with a alignment stick to make sure that he took it back, on the right path, which is very much affected by how he grips it. And you can see here, he tends to hit down on it. His swing direction is more to the left. And the spin is 2,700 versus 1,800. So that's a spectrum, between players. I think, TrackMan has hurt a lot of PGA Tour players, LPGA Tour players, because the philosophy, probably for the first 5 years at least, of club fitting relative to players was to make sure that the spin was as low as possible. But the reality is that different grips cause different attack angles and spin lofts. And as a consequence, the ball launches at different heights for different players, and therefore you need different spins to keep the ball in the air or to stop it climbing, right? So if you're a stronger grip player and you launch it at 12.5, then you need to keep the spin lower naturally to keep it in the air the right way. Whereas if somebody launched it a little bit lower, then the spin is going to be matched up with a higher rate. So this is two players actually came in to see me the same day, and on the left is Kevin Stadler, and on the right is Robert Garrigus. So we can see obviously just from the very start the big difference in their grips, and you can also see a big difference as a consequence in the swing direction. So just so you all understand, when we talk about how the grip affects shot shapes, the swing direction is what you can see on a video like this, right? So if you can imagine Ben Hogan's pane of glass, you can tilt that pane of glass left and right, that's swing direction. Path is a three-dimensional number, so it's a combination of swing direction, attack angle, and the plane of the shaft. And as a consequence, we can't see path on a video camera, right? So if I put the ball back in the stance here, path might be 0, but we can see swing direction. So when Mike and I are communicating with each other, talking about swings and how the grip is affecting the swing, we know for sure that it's affecting the swing direction and the attack angle. And the third part, path, is it's a little bit harder to see, but obviously we can see it on a launch monitor. So we can see big difference if you look at Stadler's trail elbow, how it's behind his hip, and the lead arm is relatively vertical. And you can see Stadler's trail elbow is more in front of his hip, and the lead arm is a little bit more away from the body, and his swing direction is more out to the right. And so you can see we did some testing with Tim Wood, who's an excellent golfer and a great guy down in Melbourne, great teacher. This is a my swing system, so you can see basically the swing at the top, he made a weaker grip, so a really good representation of the swing direction and how it affects everything. And then at the bottom, that's him with a strong grip. So some of the numbers there you can see. So minimize my thing here. Sway. What do we got here? Sway thrust. So sway is a lower number with the weaker grip and a larger number. And then he has a little bit more thrust. So, people are going to come, I'm going to come onto that. They're going to come out of their posture a little bit earlier if they are releasing a open grip, as it were. This is the consequence on the swing of a closed face versus open face. So you can see in the bottom one, 22 degrees of side bend, measured by the my swing system, and the top is only 10 degrees. So the range we see on AMM is about 22 to 38 degrees in side bend. So this is him hitting those shots, and you can see, the change, same club head speed. Look at the attack angle, club path changed, and these are two shots, like one after the other, and just using the open face hit it straight, closed face hit it straight instructions, which I think I use sometimes with players during lessons as well, just to get the feeling of the pieces they need to do. So the consequence of those two sets of variables is height on the golf ball, right? So you remember I mentioned Sergio as an example of somebody that hits it lower. So as I said, when the swing direction or Ben Hogan's pane of glass goes slightly more to the left, it also makes the attack angle get a little bit steeper. So it's very feasible that the attack angle and the swing direction match up, and both groups of people hit the ball straight. But with the stronger grip and the shallower angle of attack, the person's going to launch the ball a little bit higher if they zero out their path. So that would be the difference between Sergio and someone like Dustin Johnson, for example, or Justin Thomas. So this is part of the software. So we can see here that Stadler would be predicted. So I can basically just put in the grip style and the club head speed, and it spits out perfect numbers. So you can see there are limitations to somebody having a weaker grip in terms of how that affects their numbers. And again, this is from a straight stance. We can get Stadler to hit draws just the same way that Patrick Reed hits draws, and just the same way that Rory McIlroy hits draws. So we can increase his attack angle, but this is just assuming that they aim straight. The launch angle of Stadler is going to be a lot lower, and spin's going to be higher, and Garrigus is going to hit up on it more. So does that mean that everybody should hit up on it with a strong grip? No, it doesn't, because if it's not your style, you're going to really struggle to consistently deliver the face to path. So this is a question we run into pretty much every day, and we see that people who, at one point in their career hit it, reasonably flat ball flight, and they come and say, I want to hit it higher and further. And I went to a teacher and he told me to hit up on it. That is a variable, but we use aim as a variable for the weaker grip golfer to hit up on it more and gain distance. If they aim straight and just strengthen their grip, they're going to struggle to control the face and the direction of the swing. So just to let you know that not everybody is hitting high draws. This is the first tee at Baltusrol. And she gave this, I think Carbone is on, and he actually named the person that hit that shot off to the left. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was somebody kicking the dog. And so you can see there's flat ball flights, there's high ball flights, and this is the PGA Championship. So you can see that it's okay to hit different shape shots. This is Ryan Palmer, for example. He's a very strong gripper, and it comes up in a lot of my examples. So he's here with Randy Smith, who's a terrific teacher. And I said to Randy, this is how it works. He's got a strong grip. He's going to hit up on it and this and that. And he said, well, what kind of shot shape do you think he's got? I said, draws. And he said, well, that's his natural shot shape, but we open him up. So he's agreeing with us that, so Ryan Palmer tends to aim left and hit fades, even though what I just said is that he's more likely to hit draws with the grip that he has. This is Ryan Moore, same thing. You can see he tends to aim to the left and hit it straight. So, with the right hand being slightly under, he's going to tend to swing right, but it's right of his aim, right? So, again, if we have an under golfer who tends to swing right of their aim and they want to hit the ball dead straight, then we just use aim as a fine tuning kind of tool to have them hit it straighter. This is Mark Leishman. And this was actually surprised me. I filmed this, and I thought he was aiming somewhere else, and then he starts it, way more left. But that's the way Leish plays. I think Leish is probably one of the most matchup swings on tour, and as such, he's one of the most underrated players on tour. So he's, what we call a side cover golfer, which affects the backswing. So he has a pretty weak right hand. Look at how closed his club face goes back. And then how he releases fully from the top and hits it straight or slight fades. So this is kind of explaining, it's just going ahead there. This is explaining how when we change our grip, we obviously have to change the way we release the club, right? So, a golf grip is basically a relationship with the club face. Strong grip equals a closed face grip, which Phil's going to talk about. Open face grip is a weaker grip. And you have to play with the right hand. People have different opinions, right? So hope you guys can hear this. Put the right hand underneath to where you can't see any knuckles on the right hand. Now, you have to think about this, because now if you don't hold it and you let this hand go back up to this normal position, you're going to hit yourself a low hook. So basically, I don't know if you could hear that, but Lee Trevino is saying you have to have the strongest possible grip. And if you hook it, then you need to hold the angle longer to stop hooking it. And if you think about Lee Trevino, that's exactly what he did. So there's an example of Lee Trevino being Lee Trevino, right? So look at his grip. His right elbow's under, his right hand's under, and he has a ton of shaft lean to kind of delay when the club face closes. This is Hogan. You don't really see it until you see it, right? So, you know, people have never really paid attention to how weak his right hand was, in my opinion. And, you know, understanding where a grip comes from, it's not just the palm of the hand, it's the whole arm. You know, it comes from the shoulder, which actually, it makes it hard to measure. We can't easily measure the amount of shoulder rotation. It comes from the elbow position, and it comes from the hand. Look at the club face on the ground. If you guys can see that very easily, but his club face is even open. So that would be, you know, one of the weakest club face to hand relationships in history. It even has a reverse kind of shaft lean, which makes it easier to put the hand on there a little bit weaker. So you can see on the right, he's fully released it. He's not got any lean, right? Because relative to Lee Trevino, the lean is a face opener. So he said, I wish I had 3 right hands, which means that he could release it as much as he wanted, and the ball would not go left. And Jack Nicklaus, and I said it on an interview recently, you know, it's pretty amazing how, you know, how good Jack Nicklaus was. But he wasn't exactly listened to when he said things about the swing. It was like, yeah, you're just a talented guy, right? But he had a very weak grip, especially early in his career. And he said the same thing. So you got Hogan and Jack Nicklaus saying you can't release it soon enough. And then you've got the video camera age saying, got to hold the lag as long as you can, which is excellent for Lee Trevino, terrible for Jack Nicklaus. And they're both great. They both win. So you can see a modern day example here. Take note of the position of the trail elbow. We're going to come on and talk about that. So you see how Rory's elbow is behind his hip and his trail arm is extending, whereas Dustin Johnson's trail arm is in front of his hip and, you know, basically delaying when it's happening. So the way to think about it is the trail arm has a relationship to the club face, just the same way as the grip does. And if you extend your arm, let me just, Chris, how do we put me up here? Let me just stop sharing for a second. So can you guys see me? I can see Mike. So if you put your hand up like this and you throw a punch, you see how your hand rotates. So that rotation is basically, you know, closing the face. So the rate and timing of when we close the face or extend our arm is very important relative to the grip. So if you look at Dustin Johnson, you know, he's keeping his arm bent for a lot longer than Rory McIlroy's. And this is what Sasha McKenzie is going to talk about tomorrow, is how the twist about the shaft changes. Michael Jacobs calls it gamma. Sasha McKenzie calls it about the shaft twist. But the rate and timing of when that twist happens is different. And basically it is a example of when, you know, strong grip golfers keep their arm bent longer, which delays when the arm straightens and therefore the club closes. And weaker grip golfers straighten their arm a lot earlier and put rotational force into the grip a lot earlier. So there's a summary of what I'm talking about here. We've got Martin Keimer on the right and Ben Crane on the left. Crane had, I think, one of the most, the highest side bend numbers that we've seen. So face openers and closers is what we called it. So when we tested the grips, we close the face, hit it straight, open the face, hit it straight. The things that change are face openers and closers, and they contribute to the squareness of the face at impact. So the things that we see from the data are side bend is the #1 correlation of club face angle, trail arm flexion extension. So the rate and style of its straightening is a very important thing. Lead and trail arm rotation, of course, you know, rotation itself, right? So when we see a stronger grip, the torso tends to open up more. So again, remembering we're human beings when we're playing golf, if I'm going to straighten my arm earlier in order to close the face earlier, then I'm going to need more space to straighten my arm into, and vice versa. If I have a strong grip and I have to keep my arm bent for a longer period of time, then I'm going to side bend more in order to be able to keep that bend and still hit the ball without whiffing it. So, you know, the upper body lift numbers, pelvis thrust and lift, all change according to the style. So you have someone like Mark Leishman. He's going to be taller at impact. You know, some people will call it early extension. You know, if Jeff Ogilvy would be a really good example, or Ernie Els, they released it, you know, so hard and early that they were square at impact with more release. It's not very fashionable these days, but it's very functional for a lot of players. You know, Rory McIlroy doesn't open up a ton, but he uses a lot of closing early and hard. And then foot position has a big effect. So I've mentioned the forces and torques there. So basically the ground forces are going to change to accommodate that elbow delivery. You know, Scott Lynn mentioned to me, if you're going to talk about the thing that has the biggest effect on the ground forces, then it has to be the thing that's closest to the ground, which is the lower body, and vice versa. If we're going to talk about the things that are going to have the biggest effect on the forces and torques on the grip, then we have to look at the thing that's actually connected to the club. And so if you watch Mike and I teach, you're going to see us spend most of the time talking about grips, release, and lower body action, because those are the two things that, you know, that's where you get the power and that's where you deliver it. So now that being said, so the forces and torques are going to change significantly depending on your personal relationship with your club face. And, you know, I already mentioned the biggest difference is the rotation around the shaft. So here's two good examples. This is Ryan Palmer I mentioned before, and you can see how much side bend he has. His elbow's much more less pronated, let's say. You can see Mark Leishman, and look at the direction of the palm even, impact. You're going to see pretty much the golfers are going to return their hand to the position it was at address. So you can see Ryan Palmer's is under the shaft and Mark Leishman's is on top of the shaft. You can also see that Leishman has got both arms and legs straight, which is very much a characteristic of somebody that needs to release the open face to hand relationship earlier. And then you can see that Ryan Palmer's still side bending and still has some bend in his knees and his elbow to keep that face from closing at a faster rate. Now, those two golfers have a very different rate of closure, which Sasha is going to come on to more tomorrow in detail. What we find is that, you know, in our research is that the rate of closure is very much dependent on the style of grip that you have. Also has an effect on the type of backswing you have. So you saw earlier that Robert Garrigus has a pretty strong grip, and that's going to cause the lead arm to rotate earlier and the hand to go under the shaft. So that's an absolutely perfect backswing in our philosophy for him. And that's something that is pretty common on tour to try and change. I would say that, you know, you look at some of the golfers with stronger grips on tour, like Justin Thomas and Xander Schauffele, to name two. They're trying their best to swing more down the line with less rotation, which is more like Ben Ahn on the right, who is a terrific ball striker and is very matched up. So his lead arm is less rotated in order that his trail hand can stay on top of the shaft. So the important thing to understand the relationship between the two spectrums, you know, if you have a strong grip, your right hand's going to be under the shaft and the right elbow is going to be lower than the left elbow throughout the whole swing. And it's vice versa. For somebody who's got a weaker trail hand grip, the trail arm is going to stay higher than the lead arm the whole swing. So you can see, if you had to guess what kind of trail hand grip these guys have, you can see they're all across the line, which comes back to our point earlier is, you know, if you're trying to keep your right hand on top of your left, or your right arm on top of your left arm throughout the swing, this is what you're going to look like. Now, obviously, as I said before, it's not completely predictable, but these are some really good examples of people that point the club right of their lower body alignment and do really well with it. Here's some examples of some people who do the opposite. So these guys are stronger grip players. They have more lead arm rotation. The right hand is more under the shaft at the top of the backswing, so we can see the different orientation of the club. Patrick Rogers, that's Danny Willett, who's got one of the stronger grips on tour, Steph Meadow, and Wyndham Clark. And again, back to, you know, orientation of the hand impact. Look at Matt Fitzpatrick's hand versus Dustin Johnson, both great players. Here's a change I made with Aaron Badley. Look at the palm relative to the kind of the shaft. You can see on the left he is stronger. His right elbow is more under. Now he can release it as much as he wants and not hook it. This is Stephanie when she was injured, basically. Let's see here, play. For some reason that one won't play. Oh well. So the other one, it looks perfect. Okay, so you drop that one into a teaching manual and say, this is the most beautiful swing I've ever seen. I actually think this one's more beautiful. So what, as I mentioned earlier, you can even see almost that she has short wingspan to height, which takes the hands more in. So there's two different dimensions to the backswing here. Depth, width, and height is a product of the posture and arm length. And the grip, which she's side under, so you can see her lead forearm is slightly higher than the trail forearm here. So that's going to cause more rotation. I mentioned before, the stronger grips tend to have more lead arm rotation early. So more about the shaft rotation. So you're going to see her roll the club and get a little deep. So right hand goes under the shaft early. That's a really great trait for stronger grip players. A little bit laid off. Pure. 10 out of 10. So here's kind of a delivery style comparison. Some of the characteristics of, I think the question is always, you know, how do we hit the golf ball? Obviously, it's the type of force that we put into the handle, and you can see those guys, Harold Varner, Luke Donald, and Charles Howell are all side under to under golfers, and their right hand is under to on the side of the club at this point. But look at the lead arm angle. It's pretty interesting. They've created space for the trail elbow to move into. So usually you'll see under golfers have that look that the left arm is significantly higher than the right at this point. You can see the difference in the guys below. They all have weaker grips. Look at the orientation of the trail palm, how different it is to the ones on top. And look at the difference in the lead arm angle and also the position of the trail elbow, how it's more behind the hip or beside the hip versus out in front of the hip. So if you now imagine, if you put yourself in their shoes and you say to yourself, the ones on the bottom are creating more twist around the shaft and the ones on the top are coasting, getting ready to deliver a club face that's already closed to their hand. So they don't want to release it too early. And then you got this guy. What do you call that? Can you see the club face? We call that clo pun. So I don't know who came up with that one, Mike, but that's hard to tell what that one is. This was Martin Keimer. So Martin Keimer, as you can see there, we're going to talk about the testing, but some of the variables we'll see is if you look where his trail elbow is, it's kind of on his shirt line. If you imagine the line, the seam of the shirt. You also see his right hand is what we would call side on. So the palm is neither underneath or on top, the right hand. And so the interesting thing is, you know, he's side on, but he grips it weaker, if anyone has paid attention to how Martin kind of grips it. And as a consequence, he chooses to grip it weaker in order to hit his fade. So somebody who's side on like that grips it weaker, it makes it a lot harder to close the club face. And so I said to him, you know, do you hit a lot of, I bet you don't hit many hooks. And he goes, I hit Van in 1000. So he doesn't hook it very much. But he's an example of somebody that, because of the way he holds the club, he, you know, find it very hard to hit draws from a square stance. So what he needed to do, in our opinion, is aim right, like Patrick Reed and Sergio Garcia and Rory McIlroy. But what he tried to do, apparently, is to try and change his swing through hooking it from a square stance, which is a pretty profound difference. James Hahn's another one that he grips it just a tiny bit stronger than he tests, and because he wants to see the ball turn right to left. Here's some of the tests that we've done. You can see Casey, Webb Simpson, Josh Schwartzel, Vijay Singh, and then Keimer, of course, Justin Thomas down there, Adam Scott. And so looking at the different things, look at the trail elbow position, look at the palm position. Those are the two variables that Mike's going to go through later. There's a big difference in the elbow positions there for Vijay Singh. Vijay was really cool. He's like, so what does that tell you? I said, well, it tells me your ball flight numbers. And I told him, and he's like, oh man, that's the most amazing thing. I didn't need to spend 40 years digging out the dirt. So it was fun. So here's summary of what we're going to find with the stronger grip golf is closed face-to-hand relationship. We're going to hit up on it more, tend to hit it more on the heel because the swing's swinging out to the right a little bit more, and they'll tend to hit it higher on the face as we showed you with the test. Because of the higher face and because of the attack angle, they're going to hit it a little bit higher or launch it a little bit higher. But the spin's going to be lower because they're having, more forward shaft lean, less loft. So it's a high launch, but relatively low loft. So the spin is low, which is a pretty lucky coincidence for them. As I said about the kinetics, they're going to twist the shaft later and in a different fashion that Sasha will talk about tomorrow. They're going to have more side bend, more trail arm bend. Their body's going to be a little bit more open to the target. They're going to look good on a video camera. They're not going to leave the wall, as it were. Luckily, we don't have to play against walls and they don't score it. The right elbow is lower than the left throughout the swing. If these guys want to hit it straight, they're going to tend to aim a little bit to the left. So weak grip summary, you can see actually is, imagine if you had a philosophy that your address position had to look like your impact, then you'd call on Martin Keimer and you say, well, you have to grip it pretty weak to do that. So he has an open face-to-hand relationship. If you can just see the grip, the palm of his hand versus the face, it's going to tend to make him hit down on it more, obviously a lot less side bend. Club's going to travel around the corner earlier, so it's going to go more leftward swing direction. His misses are going to be a little bit lower on the face, obviously depending on the ball position, but we customize the ball position for grip, by the way. So it's a lower launch, higher spinning shot. He has a much earlier release, so that's why his shaft has a lot less lean there. He's got less side bend, much straighter trail arm. Body is less open to the target. He's going to have more thrust because he has less rotation. He'd be the guy that would do really well if you told him to cover the ball. And his lead elbow is lower than his trail elbow throughout the swing. He's going to tend to aim to the right to hit it straight. So there's a bunch of drills we do. One is a paddle drill. So you can see here, that's the swim paddle that we use. We put it on the trail hand and we put it at the angle that your hand should be as tested. And then you basically just swing. And it's a really good way of feeling the correct orientation of the hand and how it affects the swing. We like using side hill lies. So somebody who's going to be a weaker grip needs their swing direction to go more to the left. So they're going to have, you're going to hit downhill more. Somebody with a stronger grip is going to need their swing direction to be more to the right so they can hit uphill to get the feel. We really like throws. We did a project with Duffy. We're going to get the results of that soon, where basically in Scott Langley's case there, he's a very weak grip player, so he's going to throw the ball down at the ball. Whereas you get somebody like Martin Traynor or Robert Garrigus or Justin Thomas, they're going to skim the stone. So you guys are aware of baseball. If you're not aware of baseball, you should look at a submarine throw on YouTube. It's unbelievable. But that would be, a different way of delivering. So this, skimming a stone would be another way of thinking it. And then we have closed and open face swings, which basically, is the way we did the testing. But if you exaggerate the face on the ground, it gives people the feels that they need to do to get the release pattern that they need to. We talked about fitness considerations. I'll take Ernst Swick as an unbelievably great expert on this. He's a doctor. And he says, golf first. You have to match your personal pattern to play better golf. Then you have to talk to an expert if you're in pain and get healthy first. And then finally, you're going to, ramp up the horsepower at the end. So provided you're, delivering it in the right way and you're in pain free, you're going to do pretty well already. And then, of course, because we're hitting the ball with different angles, different attack angles, different contact points, different lofts, there's going to be different spins. And so people need, the center. So those weights on the PXG, for example, you can move those around, which you can with most drivers these days. You can change where the center of mass is in the head to represent where you hit it. You can also change the shaft. Some people need more spin, some people need less. Change the weight. I mean, weight's a big deal for spin. And that's it. So that's kind of my part of talking about the grip and how it affects what we do. So
that's some good questions if you're ready for a couple.
I'm always ready.
Monique Thores says, wants to know how predictable the system is for high handicappers, 36 to 40, for example. Tendencies are the same, but do you have a bigger margin for error on players that are higher?
Mike Adams is the best high handicap teacher I've ever seen in my life. So
you're saying I'm great with choppers.
yeah, it's a match made in heaven, is what I'm saying. So the way to approach it, I mean, if you look at you know, what Stack and Till used to say, you know, hit the line and hit the middle of the face and things like that. I mean, those external variables are really important. So I think, you know, we still fix like exactly the same thing. So, you know, if Tiger Woods comes to see me, or Mike, or a beginner, I mean, let's say not say a beginner, let's say a 35 handicapper, then we're basically going to do the same tests. We're going to prioritize the changes in the same order, but we're going to regress the speed probably that they have to do it to a point where, you know, you might do mini swings, you know, hip high to hip high swings to learn the grip for 10 minutes instead of 3 minutes. And then you allow them to take longer to make the same changes. Basically, they need more education, and then it needs to be externally oriented in terms of results. You know, some awareness of where they hit it on the face, you know, where are they hitting the ground, things like that. So I think, you know, when Mike and I do events together, we always have a bunch of beginners and high handicaps, and we have incredible success doing exactly the same program as we do with the pros.
No.
And then,
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to answer Paul Whalen's question of we did closed and open face. It's in the middle, Paul. I mean, basically, I use the spectrum of grips and use closed and open to be the extremes. Then neutral is basically in between. So, you know, you have a medium amount of face to hand relationship. So I don't want to talk too much over what Phil's going to say tomorrow, but basically the trail hand is going to be anywhere from 0 degrees. So the same as the face, like Ricky Fowler is like the weakest grip, to 38 degrees different, which is the strongest grip. So neutral is actually, and this is not what it looks like, this is the relationship to the face. It's about 13 degrees. So, you know, they're going to, on the scale of things, the neutral grip can aim straight. They're going to have the prettiest takeaway because it's going to be on the railway lines. And, you know, they have a, you know, medium amount of release of the trail arm, medium amount of side bend, medium amount of spin, medium attack angle. And Mike's going to cover, you know, much more in detail what we need to talk about with that.
Mark McRae's got 2 questions. One is if you see spin rate off where it should be for a certain grip, is it a grip change or are there other considerations? And the other one is, does this grip consideration follow through for short game too?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So in terms of spin, you know, the way we approach it, I'll use Martin Trainer as an example, right? So Martin gripped it a little bit weaker than what he tested out to do, which delivered more loft. And so he needed a driver to reduce spin. So once we fixed his grip and his delivery, you know, his launch angle was too low and his spin was too low. So we changed it once we changed the swing, right? So we always match up the swing first to where they need to be. And if the spin is off, then they need to get a new club or they need to change the club that they have.
And Mike, you want to talk about the short game aspect of this?
We will in a second. Well, I want to talk about it a little bit in my presentation.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I think, you know, just a very quick answer to that is that the rules are the same, right? So the orientation of the arm, especially the trail arm, has an effect on the movement of the club in space and loft. So I think Mike will come on to that a lot more.
And Tim Nienhuis wants to know, when you talk about strong and weak grip style, is it just trail hand or both?
So we're going to come on and build out the details tomorrow. Basically, what we found with the testing is exactly what Mike found many years ago, is that the trail hand has a much greater effect on the club than the lead hand. And when I'm talking about strong and weak, we're trying to rename it. And again, Phil will talk about this more tomorrow, to open and closed face, because it's a relationship with the club face that has never been really addressed about the grip. So does that answer it? So much more trail hand. I mean, lead hand is more of a matchup to your body style, which Mike's going to come on to, but trail hand, much more.
Wendy Doolin wants to know if weaker grip would tend to need less torque in a driver shaft.
That's not my... Yeah, we can. Can you ask Sasha that tomorrow? He did a great study on torque in the shaft. I think, in my personal experience, weight is probably the biggest thing. And we have Tom Resendez is on here. He's a great club fitter. Maybe he wants to comment.
Michael Voss wants to know about grip thickness.
Mike's done some work. Doc Wright did some work on it. My personal opinion is I find it's easier for weaker grip golfers to get the hand more over on a smaller grip. And in my opinion, again, this is like separate from, this is my opinion versus data. And I find that stronger grip golfers tend to find it easier to grip it stronger with a slightly thicker grip.
Steve Foisey, on a downhill lie, dealing with a weaker gripper who's likely to hit it lower on the face, would you suggest maintaining more pressure than normal on the lead leg throughout the swing and change aim?
No, what we're going to do here over the course of, at least 18 hours, I would think, we're probably going to run over every day, by the way, is we're going to discuss the upper body and lower body and how they interrelate. So, I mean, everybody goes to their front leg at some point, right? So you have people that move off it more, come back to the left. People who go to the left, stay on the left. So, in regards to that, everyone's on the left. Now, what happens is people with weaker grips tend to come up out of their posture a little bit earlier, which lines the shaft up more. So there's more loft, right? And so it's actually pretty interesting how the human solves the puzzle of loft and things like that. So, so I think, let's just leave this as a grip conversation and say, but the grip does then relate to the way the lower body works eventually.
Okay, I cleared up the question queue.
Good man.
Moving on to Mike now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, let me just answer one more question because it is a really important one. Ryan Hager asked, how often do you find resistance to changing grip type? So, this is the kind of conversation where Mike and I and Matt have when we're talking about the book. So we'll have a conversation about, making a change. So as a golf teacher, people's perception of golf teachers is that we're always changing shit. And, part of that process is we're trying to change something. Plus we also have, the ability to communicate it. And as you say, sometimes there's resistance. Now, how do we deal with that? And it's a question of understanding what's about to come, right? So, most people don't want to hear that they have to change their grip, but we give them experiences. So, we're going to come on to that. But basically, if you grip it the correct way for you and you swing it just with your right hand only, you'll feel, the face is very square and it'll be very appealing to you to do that very quickly. So you show them a naturally occurring improvement, without too much pressure, right? You're not hitting balls first. You're showing them the feels first. And then they hit balls in it. And you tell them what's going to happen before it happens. You say, if you weaken your grip, you're probably going to block the first one, and they do. And then you say, now you have to try and hook it, and they hit it straight, and they're like, oh my God, that's much easier. So I think it's as much understanding the path of things to come and kind of guiding them through it that's as important as anything else.
Okay, these are 3 examples when we do the test. We always, first of all, when we start with the test, the screen, the right hand for a right-hander will be lower than the left. And we kind of like to have them stabilize the chest and then swing their arms to the right. And if the right arm tends to tuck early, as in JJ's case, we know that they are going to be under or side under. If the right elbow tends to go back and up, like in George's case, gets behind the seam, we know that they're going to be side cover on top. And if the right elbow is in line with the seam, they're going to be side on. That's just kind of how we're looking at it. And like Terry said before, the grip is the hand, the grip is the forearm, the grip is the elbow, the grip is the shoulder, and it's also the club face. Now, looking at the grip, if you notice for slightly a side under grip, you notice the face is under and behind the hands. And you go to the bottom one, side cover, the club is outside and looks and tends to be hooded, and side on, it's going to be more down the line. In our opinion, both Justin Thomas and Xander Schauffele are struggling because they're working so hard to get down the line instead of allowing the club to get more inside and be a little more open. So this is how the paddle drill started, where we had them set the hand under and swing it waist high to waist high, or set the hand on sideways and swing it waist high to waist high, or set the hand on side cover and swing it waist high to waist high, and feel the direction that the club swings and what happens to the club face. And here's the reality of it. On top grip is actually an open face grip. An under grip is actually a closed face grip, and a side on grip is actually a square face grip. Good example. Here's Tony Finau. You notice that his spin rate is over 3,000. He's a side cover golfer. Here is Ryan Moore, who's side under, and you notice that his spin rate is low. Same thing with, notice how his spin rate is low, and good example, Steve Bowditch, under golfer. What is the spin rate? It's low. This is Terry already went through all this. So let's go through things, okay? Here's a good example of a golfer. We had him swing his arms to the right, and notice how the hand went to an under position. He had his right hand on top. When we moved to here, all of a sudden, he hit it much, much better. There was a guy who was a scratch golfer, and he had always been under, but they squared his grip up, and all of a sudden, he became a 8 to 10 handicapper. Watch where the right hand goes. Elbow tucks in, club face open, right hand opens up. This guy had been a state champion as an under player, moved to side on, trying to be more neutral. But when we tested him, when the arm swung back, his hand opened up. So we have to test everybody. This was my dentist who had been struggling with his golf game. When I tested him, right hand went way under. Come on, Doc. See how it rotates? And when I moved his right hand to an under position, he was able to hit the ball much, much better. Former #1 player in the world, Dustin Johnson's grip. We probably never teach that, but in reality we should. It depends upon what the student is. There's Dustin's grip. Zach Johnson, under golfer. Right arm tucks in, club face goes in. Now watch the elbow tuck on the downswing, get ahead of the hips, and the club swings out, more of an extension release. Yanni Singh, this is when she was the #1 player in the world. Look what that right hand was. And look at return to it impact. It will always, the delivery style will depend upon what your natural right hand grip is. But here's what Yanni Singh went to. It looks much better, more neutral. Can't play from here. This one, 107 miles an hour, and beat everybody in the world. He has a choice, either fix the right hand grip or become a waiter. This girl played on the she played on the European tour, way under grip. They kept fixing her and she couldn't hit it. Here's Garrigus when Terry was tested him. Matches his grip. David Duval was an under player. A lot of side bend. Notice how far under the hand is at impact. Zach. This guy's won 15 times, 2 major championships. See how much the right elbow tucks and how much the club goes around him? Perfect match for his golf swing. Watch the elbow tuck in on the downswing. Gets past the belt and watch him extend out and through. JB Holmes, check out the right hand grip. Right hand under. Absolutely kills it. Does exactly what he's supposed to do. Here's JB. Now, he's got longer arms, so the club's got to go up. He's an under golfer, so the right arm's going to tuck. He's got a thick chest, so he's going to turn and get the club to the inside. So watch what he does. He matches it. He does exactly what he should do. Right arm tucks going back. Club goes inside because of the thick chest. Now it goes up because of the longer arms. Now watch what happens in the downswing. Right elbow is going to tuck on the downswing. He's playing from an open position, so the club's going to be, see how the right elbow is tucking in? All the under golfers who fade the ball, Trevino, JB Holmes, Dustin Johnson, and John Rahm and them, they all play from an open position, so they can go ahead and shift the plane to the left. But the swing does not change. JB's right hand under. Trevino, see how far under it is? Look where it is at impact. See how the club extends out and the right hand stays under. Watch Zach's right elbow. Tucks in and extends through. Lots of side bend. Trevino. Elbow's tucking in. Palm is facing the sky. Club is behind him. See Rahm. Elbow's tucking in. Palm's facing the sky. I mean, you can win a couple Masters with a side under grip. Dustin Johnson extending out. Rahm. Look at Bubba. This is an example of what Terry was talking about. What club head speed, launch angle, and everything is perfect according, and see how low his spin rate is? It's all because of the grip. Now side under. And side under, lower torso to hip plane on takeaway. So it's going to go back a little lower. Left hand controls direction of the hinge. Front linkage. Linkage, we're referring to where the right elbow is relative to the right hip on the downswing. Front means it's in front of the right hip. Rear means it's behind the right hip. Center means it's over the right hip. Swing direction is more to the right. And they're going to use a little more lateral and spin. There's a side under grip and testing. Here's Lydia Ko when she was #1 player in the world. Side under. See how much under her right hand is? So in making her average, they made her very average. Got her to stay more centered and changed her grip. Dustin Johnson. Check out Dustin's right hand grip. This girl, under golfer, played collegiately, and she plays on the Futures Tour. See how the right elbow tucks in and the hand begins to open up. Side under. Terry testing Adam Scott. Elbow tucked in very early, and hand is slightly under. And as his grip, side under. Davis Love III, same thing. Take the left hand down. That's why we test. Oops. This girl's a collegiate player. Side under grip. This guy plays college golf. His coach is always trying to fix his grip, but side under, and plays great from the side under position. Every time they move him to neutral, the ball goes so far right that he can't play. This guy's a scratch golfer. We allowed him to return back to his side under grip, and he started being a scratch golfer again instead of a 12 handicap. Girls see how the right hand is at impact. Club face dead square. Freddie Couples side under. Right hand is under through the impact. Look at where he is, under the shaft. Now, Masters champion. See how far right the club swings? Angle attack is, he hits 5 up on it. Path goes to the right, spin is low. Danny Willett. Here's Xander Schauffele. Low spin. Here he's hitting a fade because stance a little bit on the open side. KJ Choi, side under grip. Justin Thomas, low spin. Side under grip. Stuart Sink was an under golfer, as was Luke, as was Andrew Loop. There's Justin Thomas. Check out his right hand. Right hand's under the shaft. So 117 miles an hour club head speed, angle attack 3 up, spin 1 was 1804. See where the right elbow is going? It's tucking in, club is dropping behind, right hand is under. See how the arms extend out? Every time we measured these guys, the checkout was happening, and it was amazing to us how many of them actually did what they should have done. But we've seen so many good players taught out of their natural function and cause them to play worse golf. Watch how quickly he gets off his right foot. Watch the right elbow tuck in. Watch the right hand stay under. He's actually flying. Jimmy Walker, side under grip. Low spin, angle attack up, and lots of club head speed. Dustin Johnson, side under. Look where right his elbow is. It's tucking in. Look where the right hand is. See where the right hand is at impact? What's the right elbow coming down? Center. Tons of side bend. See him? Dustin Johnson. 2016 spin, angle attack 2.8 up. He actually plays from an open stance to try to fade the golf ball. Now, a lot of people were confused on why this was happening. Then all of a sudden, that became a teaching point where everybody's trying to get that left hand bowed. When in reality, a lot has to depend upon the right elbow. When the right elbow tucks in, it will bow the left wrist. If the right elbow is out, it will cause it to cup. So basically, it's a product of the right hand grip. If you notice, Rahm, These guys are all under golfers. Watch John Rahm hit it. Right elbow tucks in. Right hand is under, extending through, lots of side bend. So Rahm has a spin of 1645, very low, angle attack 5.2 up, and he's playing from an open stance to try to cut it. Right arm tucks in, elbow tucks on the way down, extends through. All the under players, the arm tucks. There's Keegan Bradley, under. He's a member at medalist, and he is very much under. Now look at the difference between Dustin and you can see one is extended side cover, one is tucked and under. Check out where his right hand is, still under the shaft. Same thing. See how much under the shaft the right hand is? Brooke Henderson, under, side under. Justin Thomas, side under. Side on grips. Hunter Mahan, side on. Notice the spin numbers right around 2,500. Ernie Els, side on. Spin numbers are at 2,500. See the release? The hand is flat. More down the line, Tiger, who's a side on grip. Billy Horschel, who's also side on. Side on, everything moves more on plane and what we call the normal. Here is Justin Rose, who's pretty close to being vanilla. Side on grip, center post. Elbow goes beside the hip and just extends the flat coming through. Louis Oosthuizen. Not the big tucked elbow like we hear so much on in teaching. Now side cover is going to give you a steeper takeaway. Hinge is going to be controlled more by the right hand. Steeper downswing, slightly rear linkage, which means right elbow will be behind the hip. Corner cover release and the swing direction is more to the left, and they will use more of a combination of vertical force and rotation. Paul Casey, when we were testing him, is funny because he made the statement to me. I was asking him, I said, so your right hand is a lot more on top of the shaft when you grip it. He says, it is normally, but my teacher, Peter Costas, likes my right hand more neutral, so I fool him. I just open the face up. Right hand stays on top. Watch Paul Casey come down. The right elbow goes behind the hip. Right hand stays on top. The club swings more down and to the left. So we get the big thing to watch. If you watch the elbow, you get a pretty good idea of what they are. Like Roger's elbow goes back and up, so we know he's going to be more side cover. Rory McIlroy, whoops. Side cover grip. Want you to watch what he does as he comes down. The right elbow goes behind the hip. The right hand stays on top of the shaft. Whoops. See how the right hand stays on top of the shaft? And the club swings a lot more to the left. Watch how his club face, as he takes it back, is more outside, and the club face appears to be hooded. See that? Watch the right elbow. that gets behind the hip. So he goes down. Arm's not tucking and getting in front of the hip. His right elbow is going behind the hip. See how the right hand stays on top? See how much on top that right hand is? And pushes down into the left. Everybody thinks Roy opens his hips up a ton at impact. He doesn't. He actually reaches a point where his hips are actually reversing themselves as he starts down. The right hand stays on top, elbow is behind. See how he quit turning? And now it goes. When Roy's not closed, his spin is about 2,800. See the spin rate? Watch the right elbow. It gets behind the hip. Stinson, angle attack down. High spin. Ricky Fowler, high spin. When Ricky takes it back, see how the right hand stays on top? Club face goes outside. Here's one of the most on top golfers, Charlie Hoffman. Watch where his right elbow goes in the downswing. Spin is 2872. Elbow is behind the hip. So if we're always trying to get that right elbow in front, a third of these players are screwed because if they ever did that, they couldn't play. Okay, watch Charlie. Right hand stays on top. Club goes back outside. Watch the right elbow gets behind the hip and stays behind the hip to hit it. And he's pushing down the entire time. Molinari, same. Manaseo. And here is Cameron Champ. If you notice, his spin is 2831. His angle attack is 2 down. He's a side cover front post golfer. Thomas Peters, when we tested him, he was side cover. If you notice Thomas Peters, angle attack is 4.8 down. Spin is over 3,000. He's swinging at 123 miles an hour. Brooks Koepka, angle attack, 3.7 down, 2,700 spin. Club goes back outside. Bryson DeChambeau, side cover, stays on top. Here's Martin Keimer, right hand's more on top. Club swings more to the left. Excuse me, that's Stinson. Alex Noren, side cover. 2,700 spin, angle attack down. Everybody, they do the same things. I mean, we get so enamored with trying to hit up on it, which actually got Stinson in the driver yips. On top, steeper backswing, hinge controlled by right hand, steeper downswing and angle of attack. Rear linkage, which means the right elbow is going to be behind the hip. It's more of a cover release, more fade bias, and swing direction is more to the left. Here's George. Sam Snead. Terry showed me this. Can you believe how much on top his right hand is? But Sam aimed right and came over everything. Furyk, right hand on top, elbow going up and back. Face is what they call shut, really not. It's just hooded. The club goes up, just like the others. Longer arms makes it go more upright, plus the right hand grip. His forearm to upper arm is the same, so he'll drop it down to torso plane. Notice how the right hand is on top, and notice where the right elbow is. It's behind, still behind, and the club swings to the left. See how much that right elbow is behind the hip? Watch Furyk. high spin, low launch. So Furyk pretty much does exactly what he should do. Elbow gets behind the hip, and we turn through. Like we said before, there are no outliers. There's a reason why everybody does what they do, and that's why we test. So when Furyk goes back, right hand stays on top, club hinges up, longer arms, takes the club back upright, on top, brings the right elbow behind, and he swings down into the left. Here is Vijay Singh, who Terry tested, very much on top. Rear post on top golfer. When he takes it back, watch how the right hand stays on top, and the club actually looks like it's hooded. When it comes down, watch the right elbow go behind the hip. The club swings down and to the left. He gets down on his drivers. Spins between 2,800 and 3,000. Here's Cabrera. Very much on top golfer. This guy won the US Open and won a Masters, almost won 2 other Masters. Had a chance to win 4 majors. Club sets and goes back to the outside because of the grip. Elbow tucks behind him, and he swings down and to the left and hits fades. One of the most on-top grips I've ever tested. See how the face is hooded and the club head's outside, and the right hand's on top. Face looks like it's wide open at the top. Look how far out the right elbow is. Watch how much the right elbow, right arm comes down behind the hip. Right hand stays on top. And club swings down and to the left. They all hood the club. The right hand stays on top. The club head goes outside the hands. I mean, you don't win Masters not swinging correctly. And great thing about Kevin Kirk, who's a phenomenal teacher. I mean, Patrick Reed and also Johnny Vegas, 2 guys who are side cover on top golfers. He allows them to do that. Club head stays outside, right hand stays on top, club head goes up. Brooks Koepka, right hand stays on top, club head goes back outside. Watch Brooks coming down. Watch where the right hand stays on top, how the elbow stays behind the hip. Now the club swings down and to the left. That's the flag over there. And watch how far left the club swings. It's a girl that I used to teach. She won a U.S. Amateur and 2 U.S. Juniors, and also finished second in the U.S. Open. E.J. Song, very much side cover, very much right elbow was behind her, very much right hand was on top. She beat everybody. Then she fixed. She's not a great course manager, but she fixed her grip, and all of a sudden she couldn't play anymore. See Sergio, right hand very much on top. See where it is? Look how much on top that right hand is coming down. Stenson. Jonathan Vegas. High spin. Angle attack goes 1 down. And this is him playing from a closed stance trying to draw the golf ball. Sergio Garcia. Spin is over 3,000. Angle attack 3 down with a driver. Okay.
Do you want to address the short game one?
Yeah. basically, the grip that you have for your full swing is the grip that you should have for your short game. And if you are, I mean, it makes it easier to hit certain shots because of your grip. But I mean, Dustin Johnson, I mean, Zach Johnson's one of the best wedge players in the world, but he's and from an under position. Rory McIlroy has become, as has Ricky Fowler, and they both use their grip.
Mike, just use your fist to explain the terminology under, side on, side cover, because some people were asking questions.
Okay.
Because we normally do that first.
Okay, basically.
So just to understand what the grip names are.
We call it what it is. Okay, here is a glass.
Hold
And
your hand
notice
up.
that my hand is on the side of the glass.
Hold your
So
hand
we
up a
call
little
that
bit.
side on.
Hold your hand up a little bit.
Okay, my hand is under the glass. We call that under. And when my hand is on top of the glass, we call it on top. So the grip is relative to where it is relative to the grip. So you can be under, side under, which is between under and side on. You can be side on. You can be side cover, which is between side on and on top, and you can be on top. Does that make sense?
It does. Anybody have any other questions that they want to get in here before we get to the end of the day? Here.
Anne Kane is asking about ball position.
We're going to talk about that. We've got a slide that covers everything about the ball position, the different swing types.
Excellent. Terry, was there any of those that you ran through on the Q&A that you thought were really good? Any other ones?
Let me just go back. Brian Pate is asking about the left hand.
Well, let's talk about the left hand.
Hold on, let me just talk about one thing. So when you test for the trail hand grip, Mike, Jason Carbone and one other person was asking what terminology you use.
As far as the test?
Do people fake it? Yeah.
No, because I don't tell them what I'm doing. All I do is
what words do you use to describe the test?
I just say, get in your golf posture, place the right hand slightly lower than the left. I want you to swing your arms to the right and stabilize the shoulders. Allow your arm to do what they do. Allow your right arm to bend. Sometimes, as soon as I see the right elbow going back and up, I know they're going to be more side cover on top. As soon as I see the right elbow tucking in, I know they're going to be more under or side under. So I think it's go on. I don't tell them what we're looking for. I just tell them to be natural and do what they do.
I think it's really important that people understand that we're very tricky the way we do the test. It's almost like hidden. I don't know how to say it really, but let's say, all we do is we surprise them almost, like hold their shoulders, and I say, put your hands together, swing your arms to the right, let the right arm fold. Before they even know what they're doing, they folded their arm in their own natural way. So it's a physical screen. It's not a golf screen, right? You don't line them up and say, oh, let me just test you for your right hand grip and see how you swing back, because that throws off the test. So keeping the words to a minimum, you're trying to see how the right arm folds without chest rotation. So that's really it. And so just keep it really simple.
Yeah, and that's why we have them grip the club to prove it to them, basically. They say, well, I can't grip the club that way. So we have them grip it starting under, have them swing right hand only, waist high to waist high, and swinging with some speed, and they will feel the club face shutting through impact. And you say, well, what do you feel? Well, the club face is shutting through impact. Then you move it to neutral, to side on, and have them do the same thing, right hand only. And I said, what do you feel? He says, well, it's still shutting, but not as much. So that doesn't match for you. So we keep moving the right hand till it gets to a place where it stabilizes the face, and the face no longer opens or closes. It goes through in a neutral position. So, well, that's where you need to be.
Paul Wayland is asking a question about more lumbar issues. In our experience, we see golfers get injured most often mismatching. So, the way we talk about a golf swing is offense or defense. So if you have, a strong grip and you allow yourself to side bend, you allow your lower body to slide, then, in the end, you kind of cover it. If, for example, someone has a strong grip and then they're told they have to cover the ball, then they'll they'll get forward early, and which steepens the shaft, and then they'll be under late. And so, I find that more people get injured trying to fix their swing during their swing than they do getting injured through matching up their variables. Now, that being said, if you don't want to get injured, don't play golf. Golf is notoriously hard on the body. We have, millions of golf balls that we hit in a right side bent fashion. So every golfer has to pay attention to having a health program, as Ernst Swick calls it, which protects your back and undoes the shots of golf. So a good friend of mine is Dave Derbyshire. He works with Adam Scott on his body. And he spends a lot of time undoing golf during their health time. And, but in our experience, if you match up, you can play the best golf. And we've seen way too much of this in the last 10 years of people being quote unquote fixed. They have a more neutral looking swing and they can't play on the weekends anymore. So their back gets better because they have some time off. So, you have to be a little bit careful changing people's natural movement patterns. But I personally think they actually more chance of getting hurt. And, you have to just treat two different things. Number one, play good golf with your golf swing. Number two, be as healthy as you can possibly be with the smartest person that you could possibly hang out with regarding the physical side of it, where they protect you from your swing and they undo the volume of golf that you play.
Now about the left hand grip. This is a little device that I developed and David Adele makes for us, okay? What it does is you place the club face here as such, and then we test to see how open your body will be at impact, and then we have you rotate through to that position, and the face will do one of two things. It will either open or close, or it will remain neutral. And whatever, our goal is to get the club to get to a point where neutral. So the left hand is matching the movement of the lower body.
We got one more here. Wendy Doolin, is it fair to say that if the grip is what they need, the body will react appropriately?
Correct.
Excellent.
That's a terrific observation.
There's anybody's got any other questions before we adjourn? Tomorrow's a pretty exciting program. The first one is Terry with Dr. Phil Cheatham. That's for the first time essentially defining mechanically what the grip is. That's a mountain that hasn't been climbed before. And then the second session will be Dr. Sasha McKenzie with Terry, and it's the kinetics of the handle and rate of closure, another grip related discussion. So if you don't have any questions now, and you have some that you want to pose ahead of that to get us ready for tomorrow, Terry, or do you want them to email them to you? What's the best method?
Sorry, I'm looking at a question. How do we? You can everyone's getting emails from me. You can email me questions in advance. If they're quick answers, I'll answer you. If not, then we can answer it during the event tomorrow.
It'll get us prepped for the morning or for the first session when we can answer them right out of the jump.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll try and do a Q&A at the start of every day just to get everyone who's late time to get on. Tomo Kibamoto asks, how do you lower the spin rate with a driver whose grip is positioned on top? Yes, you potentially need the settings of the driver, but you also need to close the stance of the golfer, which changes the direction the club swings in and changes the rate of closure slightly. So closing the stance actually fixes the loft and the swing direction, which is pretty profound in terms of knocking some spin off and increasing the attack angle. So someone like Patrick Reed, he aims miles to the right, or Rory McIlroy. So that's hopefully that answers that.
Krista Dunn just asked me how long my beard was going to be by the end of quarantine. I've got 7 inches going. I think I'm going to be Billy Gibbons by the end.
I think, and you know what? We need to teach you how to play guitar then.
Well, I'm excited to see you guys the next time, because the last time we were together was before I had my ankle surgery and
Yep.
couldn't move around. Now I can impose my will on the ground instead of the ground.
People don't realize this, but Matt can flat out move. I mean, he is an incredible paddleball player.
It's going to be even
He's a
better
great
now.
golfer. Good too. He can stand it.
Now I have 2 feet.
Hey, Mike, can you just show Brian Pate the Adele grip tester
Yes.
up on the screen a little bit better?
Can you see it?
So,
Back up just a little bit.
you can
There you go. Perfect.
you could actually use like a leg of a chair or a table and
Or a
push
board.
against it. Yeah,
That's what we used to use.
yeah.
Ed Thompson's asking if the times are the same for tomorrow. Yeah, the 2 windows are exactly the same.
Exactly the same. So we'd like to thank everybody for being here. We had 96 people online, which is very exciting, and we hope you can interact with us and with each other, because you know what you're going to learn next weekend from the panelists that have all attained great levels in teaching is that, you know, doing the tests is the entry point. So you know, we talk about the result of the test primarily this afternoon. The result of the grip test is that all those things that we talked about, but you don't know how to do any of it. You know, you literally don't know any TrackMan numbers that you should be looking for if you don't test anybody. So that insinuates that you might be guessing a little bit. So please do the tests. Ask us any questions you need, and we look forward to hanging out with you again tomorrow.
And there will be a new Zoom link. You'll get a new one for the visit. Tomorrow.
Apologies for anyone that joined late. We thought we were going to have the same Zoom link, but it changed. So I'm going to send it out 30 minutes before the presentation tomorrow.
Remember, always test, don't guess.
Wendy wants you to show the lead hand test without the Adele tool.
Well, you just put it against a flat surface. And same thing. If you you rotate through and the face opens up, the grip is too weak. If you rotate through and the face closes up, then the grip is too strong. So it's just a flat surface. I'll put it, I used to use a board all the time and do it. And then David said, I could make you something for that. So I drew it out on a napkin, and then he made a much more elaborate, nice tool. And it gives you an exact how much you need to strengthen or weaken the left hand grip. It gives you everything in degrees.
Mike, can you just do that a bit higher? It was under the screen.
Okay.
It was side under.
It was submarine.
Okay. Flat surface. Place the club face right up against the flat surface. If you rotate through and the club goes open, it tells you that you need to strengthen the grip to get it back to neutral. If you rotate your body through and the club face goes to closed, it tells you that your grip is left hand grip is too strong.
And you do that with some force against a heavy subject.
Right.
A heavy table or a chair or whatever. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Terry.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Great job, everybody.
Thank you, Matt. Good job hanging in the whole time. We had a great number stay all the way through. That's pretty cool. And we're going to upload the video and send you the link as soon as possible. Thanks, Martin.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.